Hi, welcome back to the Dial Podcast. I'm Jake Vondering. I'm here with Lance Epler.
Lance Romance, your mustached man, here for you on Monday.
Nice.
Yeah, how was that?
Not too bad.
No, that was ridiculous.
Okay.
I do look ridiculous. I need to sound as ridiculous as I look.
Yep. And we've got some cool guests with us today. Sitting across the table from me, Sarah Gates. She is with the Cycle Oregon, and she's going to sit in the studio with us. How you doing, Sarah?
I'm doing great.
Good.
Absolutely fabulous.
Yeah. See that thing right in front of you? That's called a microphone.
I will talk
If you
closer.
talk to it, people can hear what you're saying. It's a
Okay.
glorious thing.
You need to get on YouTube and see Sarah's lovely blue hair.
It's awesome.
It is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to see that. So,
Sarah's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then with us on the interwebs today, we've got Steve Schultz, the executive director of Cycle Oregon. How you doing today, Steve?
Good. How's everybody there?
Doing well. Doing well.
I'm terrible.
Awesome.
So before we get into all things Cycle Oregon, we'll run through all of our other minutiae that we normally get into on a daily or weekly basis with these podcasts. You guys sitting across the table from me, you guys raced this past weekend because you're awesome, and I'm a poser. I'm not. So, Steve, I don't know. You probably went out and raced something too. So I'll save myself for last. So, Lance, why don't we start with you?
Okay, yes, I did race. I did the Gorge Gravel Grinder, one of Chad Sperry's events with Breakaway Promotions. It was a fantastic event out in the Columbia River Gorge of Oregon, not far from the Dalles and Hood River. I think a lot of people know where Hood River is because it is a famous windsurfing spot across the whole world. And so the Dalles is not too far from there, and the Gorge Gravel Grinder was right outside of the Dalles. There were 3 events, a 93-mile event, a 67-mile event, and a 52-mile event.
52.
And I did the medium one because
You're medium.
I'm afraid. I don't do well with those longer ones. Actually, Peter Stetna came, and so did Clara Honsinger and Rebecca Faringer and Stephen Mull. I remember where I recognized Stephen. I'm getting way ahead of myself, aren't I? Peter Stetna, former World Tour pro, he raced the long one and won by several minutes. Good on ya. So that was exciting to have a World Tour pro come to our area to do this. Second place was Stephen Mull. He won Rebecca's Private Idaho.
Oh, wow.
Like 3 years ago.
Okay.
That's why I recognize his name. He beat.
Going back to Peter
King.
Stetna real quick, he was racing for Cannondale, I think, or he was racing on a World Tour pro
He was
team.
on a World Tour pro
And
team.
He quasi-retired from that to take on gravel full-time. So that's kind of his gig now. He just goes around the country racing gravel races.
It's called a privateer.
Okay.
He's not like signed with the team. He set up his own 10 or 15 different sponsors,
Sure.
and he's going around doing races, trying to get exposure for his sponsors, and that's how he is surviving at the moment. He's a privateer.
Good on you.
So,
Yep.
sponsored by Canyon and Shimano, and he's got some pretty big sponsors. He's a big name, so it was really cool to have him out at our little local event.
In Dufur,
Yes, in Dufur, Oregon.
which is
What
a
is
great
it?
place.
It was great. It's a town of what, like 200 or something?
Steve would know the answer to this question. How many people live in Dufur?
Yeah, it's pretty close to that, probably 250. But the
250.
key thing is, what can do for you?
Bum.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did the medium one. I raced in the Masters Men division, and it was a 67-mile race. Of course, I attacked at mile 0.2.
Before the start line?
right after the start,
Oh.
that first
Oh, yeah.
steep
Yeah,
grade.
I know.
I blasted up that grade and blew the whole race apart right at the beginning.
Nice.
Obviously, I didn't hold that attack, but I ended up 4th overall, which was or 4th in the Masters division, which was great for me. Our teammate John Hatfield took 2nd.
Good job, John.
And a local guy that we've talked about before, Rob Tornai, who races for Pacific Office Automation.
Rob's a great guy.
He's a great guy.
I really miss racing against him.
Yeah. So he won the Masters division. He also beat all the open guys as well. So
Did he really?
He did.
Wow.
Yeah. So just by like 20 seconds, he beat Luke Demeaux. But yeah, so that was a lot of fun to do that race. It hurt a lot. this was a race that really wasn't very well suited for me. So I was really happy to actually get fourth. There was like 95 in our Masters division.
That's
We had a
huge.
big division.
Yeah.
And to get fourth for me was fantastic.
So Rob Tornai, who won that, brought his road bike to the race, correct?
He did. He rode his road bike with 30 millimeter tires. The gravel was really quite buff, smooth. It was not a technical course at all, which is why it didn't suit me. I'm better when it gets harder. And it had 3 long sustained climbs in our route. It had a 7-mile climb, a 6-mile climb, and a 10-mile climb. So none of which really are good. That's not what I'm good at. I'm good when it gets really ugly and nasty and muddy and ruddy and rocky. Then
Cool.
Get out. Yeah. Anyway, so I did great. We had 6 teammates there that all did wonderful. Chris Surratt and Andy Levine and Ian Gibson and Ed Dudlick.
Yep.
And John Hatfield. And it was good times.
Well done, sir.
Yes, thank you
Cool.
very much. That's enough of me. I did some other stuff, but it'll come up in Jake's back pedal.
Sarah,
I was at the same race.
race recap.
I rode the Women's Masters on the 52-mile course, and agree with you, that hill was, I blasted apart our group at the top of that hill because I was determined to be up that thing first and down it. Played cat and mouse all the way down the 8-mile there were 3 of us in the lead, and we worked our way through, and then we played cat and mouse the whole way. I ended up 3rd on the podium. Was very happy with that.
Sarah,
Well
fantastic.
played.
I didn't even know you were there. Then I saw her this was actually
Collapsed at the finish line.
Yes, I did see her collapse at the
With a
finish
beer.
line. It was an actual race experience
Yeah.
because it was in this town of Duffer, which is tiny.
At the park.
At the park, they were able to have like a post-race meal, which they gave you in like box lunch form.
Sure.
And then we just spread out on the softball field where we could all sit, socially distance, and had an actual music playing and people hanging out and drinking and enjoying. It was
It was
Were you drinking
lovely.
again, Lance?
I was drinking my Coke. I
was
did have a
still lovely.
Coke.
That last downhill, that was quite something. That 10-mile snaky downhill with a
Yes.
headwind.
It was interesting. I was cramping the whole way down that.
Well,
Same with you?
So I started cramping on the big long uphill, and I kind of got a second wind, got over the top, got down the hill, and then just blasted into time trial mode. And I came around that last corner to the finish line, and everything cramped.
It's
I
because-
literally came to I was just like, left leg go.
The small and medium race, it ended on this gravel. It was a 6-mile gravel downhill, and then the last half mile was uphill. So to the finish, you had to and so there were people were cramping all
Oh,
over
it
the
was
place.
just ridiculous.
It hurt a lot. I held off a guy by 20 seconds for that 4th spot.
Better than 5th, right?
Yeah, better than 5th.
So there you go. That was my yesterday.
Fun race. Steve, you want to backpedal for us?
Yeah, sure. My 2-wheeled race had a V-twin underneath it.
Nice.
And there was a combination of gravel, pavement, sunshine, and dust. And I finished strong, 1 out of 1. I came in first out of 1.
Oh,
field,
congratulations.
and,
Well played.
it was great. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I always go into something I know I can win, right? So I compete with myself, and one day I win, and one day I lose, and then win. But no, it was great. I'm over in Central Oregon, so I live outside of Bend, and as you all know, there's gobs and gobs of riding. But this weekend, the steed of choice was a V-Strom. So
Cool.
Sounds fun.
Yeah.
It does.
And then just to round things out here, I'll go real quickly. I don't have any racing, but we did do kind of not a race, but it was race pace. We did our flogging ride on Thursday.
We had 2 kind of race-based rides.
Well, we did. We did a gravel ride that's going to be a standing gravel ride now on Tuesday, which was a lot of fun.
it was
and
great fun.
Well attended, and there was some really hotly contested segments in there.
I
People were getting after it.
may have attacked the group a few times in the group gravel ride when they weren't expecting.
There you go. And then the flogging ride, though, that was a blast, like always. And the group was still pretty big. I think we had like 25 probably
About
people show
25
up.
people.
And we only ran with 2 groups this past week. So there was an A and a B group. And the A group decided that they were just going to break everybody. It was just no holds barred. It was just the whole route we finished, our average speed was 23.5 miles an hour.
28-mile route we did in 23.5 miles per hour average.
We were going pretty hard. When I got home, well, actually, you know what? I didn't ride to my house. I rode to the finish this time because I was having too much fun. When I wrapped it all up, push save on the old Wahoo Roam, the normalized power came out to 354 watts for the ride. We were just on the gas the entire time, beating the crud out of each other. So I really love those rides, and that's a great place for everybody to go out there and train and get strong. So
I got dropped much later this week. I was I was not able to hang on that first section, but I made it farther than the week before. So
yeah, it's been fun having more of the guys from Pacific Office Automation come out to race and ride with us. Don't want to call it race, but it is kind of a race pacing kind of thing. And
race practice.
A lot of teammates showing up, and everybody's coming out there and having fun. So, and then this past weekend, I did not do anything cool, so I'm just going to pass on that. Yeah, I did do one thing that was cool. I built a raised planter bed for my vegetable garden.
Is that why your back hurts today?
A little bit.
Family points.
There you go, and some fresh produce to make me leaner.
Yeah,
so,
you need that.
Cool. Let's get into some Patreon updates here. We don't have any new Patreons to report, but per usual, and because that little grab bag is still full of all kinds of goodies, we're going to do a little Patreon drawing here. If you're watching online, Lance is mixing it up really good. We've got everything folded up super small, and we're going to let him pull a name out of there. There is one caveat that we've pulled out all of the recent winners in a separate baggie, and we're going to try and give everybody an equal chance.
Full disclosure, we pulled out Rob Buck's name.
Even though Rob Buck did call, and Rob Buck said, if you pull my name out of there again, I'm going to donate $20 to your Bikes for Kids charity. I thought that was pretty cool. But
Sarah,
pick
a name.
Let's see if she can read my chicken scratch. Nobody can ever read it. I always thought I had decent handwriting, but I guess I don't.
Kim Catherine.
All right, Kim. Come on down and get to pull something out of the the bin. Yeah, we've got all kinds of fun stuff in there. If you're interested in becoming a patron, go to dialpodcast.com, and you will see the Patreon link right there on the homepage. You can go in there and pick a Patreon that works best for you. And we really would like to say thank you to everybody for being a Patreon. Pretty cool stuff, huh?
You're welcome. I'm not a patron.
All right. Cool. Let's move on to Lead Out News.
Champ here. I'm all about having fun. You know, get a couple of cocktails in me, start a fire in someone's kitchen.
What's up, Champ?
Go to SeaWorld.
Champ Bailey here. I left my pants on today, unfortunately.
Or fortunately.
We got a couple of things that happened in the World Tour. There was the Tour of Basque Country, which actually Primož Roglič won. He didn't fall apart on the last day. He actually took second on the last day and actually let somebody win the stage because he was winning the overall thing. So they kind of made a truce with like 1 or 2K to go. So that was kind of exciting to see Primož Roglič win. You ever been to Basque Country?
No.
I went once and it was beautiful. This is in like the northern Spain, southern France region. They have their own.
Sounds great.
They have their own language.
Yeah, I knew
okay,
that.
I'm gonna stop with the stupid details. Also in World Tour news, guess who won a sprint race? Jake.
Some old guy.
The Monk's Missile.
The Monk's Missile.
Is that what they call him? Did I say that right?
Sure.
Mark Cavendish has not won a race since 2018, and he won a sprint in the Tour of Turkey. So kind of exciting to see him do well.
Okay, $1 million question, though. What other sprinters were there?
Andre Greipel was there.
I think Andre Greipel's like 10 years older than
He's
Cav.
a little bit older, and there weren't many other sprinters there. But still, it was a World Tour race, and Cavendish won it, and that was exciting for him.
Did you get to actually watch the finish?
No. Wait, Yes, I did see. I saw the last
Quick Step
10
provide
seconds.
a nice lead out for him.
Yes.
Well played.
Yeah, and he came around a guy literally in the last 10 meters. He made up a whole bike length.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
And he didn't retire right after the race, so he stretched on top.
But he did not.
Yeah.
Interesting note about the Tour of Turkey. We have a local Portland guy who's actually racing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was out there doing some laps when we were doing not we, Evan and Jesse Tonkinson were doing the Forest Home Everesting Challenge.
When they did the Everesting Challenge, his name is Kent Ross. He came out and took a stab at the KOM that day just to flex a little bit on us. He did not get it because
Mike Guyvan
because
came out
Mike Guyvan flexed harder. So, but yeah, Kent Ross, I don't know what team he's on, but I just saw on Strava that he's actually doing the Tour of Turkey.
That's
so
pretty cool.
Very cool.
That's pretty cool that look Portland guys out there. So, other than that, nothing else happened that I know of.
I think we can probably talk about one other triathlon-y thing that kind of happened over the course of this weekend.
I would be happy to talk about that. Mr. Evan Price did the Galveston 70.3 triathlon race.
Yes.
He went out there. He had a terrible swim, according to him, a respectable bike split in 2:16. I don't know what that is in average miles per hour. Do you?
23.5 for almost 24 miles an hour, and I think that Lionel Sanders was like 27.
So a few minutes behind him.
Yeah, and Evan, he crushed. I mean, he did really, really well for himself, and I think that he's still kind of earning his stripes. I saw that his first transition was about 30 seconds slower than the rest of the guys, and I think that actually ended up costing him maybe a spot.
Yep.
He could have finished one spot higher, but man, kudos to Evan. That's such an awesome thing.
He turned around and ran really well.
Yeah.
He did a 1:16 half marathon, which is like 5:35 pace.
That's stupid fast.
That's crazy.
That's crazy
Yeah.
that he ran that. So he ended up doing the half Ironman in 4:08, which is smoking fast.
Is that a PR for him?
I don't know.
Evan, we'll have to tell us about that next week, hopefully. So
Still amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's still amazing that he went out there, and I think he took 26th
out of like
in
35
the pro
or something like
race.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I don't know how many were there.
awesome. I mean, I
thought
think
they were like 65.
I could have swore when I saw
I don't know.
the depth of the field, maybe they only went up to 35. Maybe it was just one of those things where they didn't put everybody's name on there. Got to be this fast to get on the finish list.
So congrats, Evan Price. We're
Yeah.
proud of you.
Yep, attaboy.
Yep.
Cool beans. All right, thanks, champ.
Champ out.
Let's get into our topic for the day. Anybody want to take a guess what we're going to talk about? Lance, do you have any idea?
Sea kayaking.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Sea kayaking Oregon.
Sea kayaking Oregon. No.
No, we got the folks from Cycle Oregon here. We're going to talk about all things Cycle Oregon. You guys have a bunch of cool stuff coming up. And Steve, I'm going to let you just kind of talk about Cycle Oregon. Maybe give us a little bit of a background for those that don't know what that is, because we've got people from all around the world that will listen to this. So give us a brief synopsis and, tell us a little bit about yourself too.
Cool. Great. Well, thanks, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to talk and chat with you all today. So Cycle Oregon, basically, we're just a community of people that really love to ride bikes and love to help people. We were started in 1988 as an idea of getting a bike ride out into rural Oregon to try to basically drink as much pizza or drink as much beer and eat as much pizza as we can.
How much pizza did you drink this morning?
Well, we might drink a lot of pizza, depending on the day of riding. But really, basically, just to kind of boost rural Oregon and the economies of rural Oregon and try to bring some awareness out there. And the first event was in 1988, and they figured about a couple hundred people show up. 1,000 people showed up, and
oh my goodness,
they went from Salem and Brookings, and they had really not thought it through all the way. I mean, like, bathrooms are important to have, which they didn't really have, and lots of food, which they didn't really have. And so it was kind of born out of this crazy thing. But at the end of it, it was like, well, let's do it again, and let's pass the hat around and give some money back to these great communities. And so 33 years later, we're still doing that. We've gone from one event to 4 events. And we basically are there to basically be an economic engine. So we see these amazing places, we see these amazing towns. We search out all the back roads that y'all can't find on the maps and figure out how to get from A to B. And, we pump millions of dollars into the economy every year. And that's something that everybody needs, but in particular, rural communities, if are still struggling and will continue to struggle in the economy. So it's great. I've been with the organization for over 20 years. I came out of the fitness industry. I had a fitness company there in Portland for almost 20 years. And we did a lot of coaching and training, and that's how I got involved with Cycle Oregon, of coaching some riders to go out and do a big multi-day event. And I got hooked from the day I went out there and did it. I grew up in small town Wyoming, so rural is really important to me, and I get it. And I've also lived in the urban setting, so I understand the city too. But that's my heart is sort of helping those in need, and the rural scape. So Cycle Oregon does that, and it's a blast to be a part of.
Steve, so if I understand this correctly, so Cycle Oregon is like a week-long cycling event where the riders ride from point to point and are camping at each spot. Is that right?
Yeah, so we have 4 events. We have a single day women's event. We have a weekend gravel event. We have a weekend kind of all road or all access event, and then we have our 7-day event, which is the classic, which is the one we started in 1988. Yeah.
Okay.
And so all of those, the single day women's event is not a camping, but all the rest of those are camping. And so we basically say all you have to do is pedal, and we'll take care of the rest. And it's true. I mean,
and you get how many people for each one of those events?
So for our gravel, we do about 400 or 500 people for our gravel event. Our women's event pulls about 1,000 people, and then the weekend and the classic pull about 2,000 people.
I got to tell you, I cannot imagine the amount of logistics that takes to pull something like that off. I mean, I did a 5-day gravel event that was point to point in camping, and it was only 300 people, and the logistics were ridiculous what they had to pull off. I can't imagine doing that for 2,000 people. I mean, do you have a huge staff or crew or volunteer? What's the secret?
It's just me and Sarah.
Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah, we got some friends, but so it is huge undertaking. We're a moving city, and we kind of, if you're ever familiar with what a fire camp is, you've got kitchens and showers and dining, and you've got people everywhere, and we're a glorified fire camp. It's interesting. Well, we have a lot of people from the.
Steve, you got to add
What's that?
You have to add in the pizza truck, the beer garden, the main
stage, so we have beer garden,
massage,
wine garden, massage.
acupuncture.
We have a whiskey bar. We have acupuncture. We have live music every night. We have yoga. We have I don't know. We got
bike
everything.
store that goes with us. Ben and Jerry's.
We have a traveling bike store. Yeah. So Bike Gallery has been with us since the beginning. Bike Gallery, aka Trek Portland, I guess now. But they've been with us from the get-go. But it's really amazing. That's for me one of the funnest parts of just the logistics piece. And I've gotten approached by so many people from the armed forces that have seen that, and they're like, you should go work for the government, because if you can pull this kind of thing off, I mean, this level of execution is amazing. And I think that's why people come back. I mean, we see some amazing places on the road. We visit some communities that are just out of this world. I mean, Doofer, you guys were in Doofer. We love Doofer. Those guys are great. But it's the logistics of like the experience is just dialed. So.
Well, and the volunteer team that we have as well, that we get them year after year, and just I've actually served as a volunteer on a rest stop coordinator as just for kicks and giggles, and the organization to have this incredible experience at a rest stop, just one rest stop even, it's so dialed. And then the people that come back for decades, they know their jobs and they're damn good at it. It's
and they have fun too.
And they have a blast. It's like in the dorms where we were staying, it was literally like summer camp. They were all like, "Oh my gosh, the whiskey was flowing." It's just like this big party for the volunteers.
Yeah.
It was great.
Cool.
Yeah, we bring about 160 volunteers on the classic with us, and those are Cycle Oregon volunteers, and then we recruit at least that many in each town that we go to. So a lot of times, we go to a town, we'll well outnumber the population of the town that we're in. And they'll be, you'll have kids from the school that are sloughing bags in the morning, they're serving lunch in the afternoon, and they're cleaning up, doing recycling at night. So everybody gets involved. It's a huge community effort. There's about 350 support people. So between Cycle Oregon team, which there's 4 to 5 of us on staff, depending on what's going on, and the Cura volunteers, and then all of our vendors and service providers are there. So it's go to one of your big events and then just think about moving it every single day for 7 days to places that don't always have water, power, or other kind of infrastructure. It's
like
it's cool.
Hayfield.
It's super cool.
Giant hayfield.
You you do this to help out the communities as well, the communities that you visit. The help in the communities, is it just exposure? Is it the cyclists spending money in town? Is it because they're volunteering, you guys are able to kick something back to them? How does that help?
Yeah, so for sure. So all the volunteer groups that we recruit, so we'll go into a community and say, hey, we need, we have this all dialed. So that we give them the playbook, right? And say, okay, we need X amount of people for all these things. So all these different groups that help us out in all these different areas will get a stipend or a grant that goes to their organization.
Oh, fantastic.
So for the Classic, for example, for all our communities, we put about $150,000 worth grants and stipends just right into those communities from Cycle Oregon. And then our riders spend about another $500,000 in those communities throughout that event. And then, we'll use local service providers. So we'll hire local musicians, we'll hire local groups that can help doing different things. And so, we're coming in about $800,000 million of impact just on the Classic. So I use that because it's the easiest economy of scale for me to do. And we did an economic impact survey a number of years ago, and it from the Classic event, it was about $5.7 million to the state. So for a silly bike ride.
Well, you got to remember, we bring in people from all over the world. It's not just Oregon people who ride this. It's from every state. It's from, it seems like practically every country, although that's not quite accurate, but a lot from Europe, Japan. We get a lot of visitors from there that come. We have a huge group coming out of Alaska, that even though it's the same country, it's a long ways away.
Yeah.
So we're bringing in a lot of people who come in to spend time. They have to fly in or drive in, and they spend money before and after the event as well.
Yeah.
And everyone loves to buy pie from, the local, what a 4-H stand is.
Is pie an American thing? And so
there's nothing better than pie when you've been riding all day. Come on. Lemonade stands, you name it. The jerky stand in Elgin. There was a smokehouse in Elgin a couple years ago, and that place sold out of jerky. It was crazy.
Wow.
Crazy.
I think that's one of the unique things about this. Like, say, compared to Ragbri is a very famous, it's a week-long ride. I think it's Ride Across Iowa or something. I don't know what Ragbri stands for.
Register Annual Guards Ride Across Iowa.
Okay. But it's the same route, I believe. Isn't it the same route every year as Ragbri, or is it different?
No. Yeah, no, they change every year, but they are, so we are very much, we'll handle it all for you. So events that are like Ragbri, like the Rockies, they'll provide a certain level of infrastructure, but for food and those kinds of things, you're all on your own. So for Ragbri, you will end up kind of jumping on with the porter service that will provide you a bunk truck or a tent or a shower, and you go to the communities, and the communities will do the meals. So you'll buy, your corn on the cob and your whatever, or something, where we will bring the community to us, but we will also make sure that we have enough food. So the problem that historically Cycle Oregon will run into, we try to use local vendors, is you're like, well, I need to serve 2,000 people pancakes. I know there's only 200 people in your town, but can you do that? So the quality control tends to kind of fall off a little bit, and we don't want people to be angry. So we are kind of insular a little bit in that we make sure we have all that taken care of, but then we end up figuring out other ways to dump that money into the community. So
I love that. The cool thing about Cycle Oregon is that it's a different route every single year, correct? So you're researching different towns, small towns, areas of the state. It's always somewhere in the state of Oregon or just barely peeking out of the state of Oregon. But, I mean, you're able to do a different section of the state and kind of rotate around every year. How do you decide what towns you're going to visit?
Yeah, good question. We have been on pretty much every paved road in this state that I can connect a town to within riding distance. So when gravel started to take over, I was super excited because, we'd come up along this road and be paved and all of a sudden be gravel. You're like, oh my God, it turns to gravel. Now you're like, sweet, it's gravel. Why did it turn to pavement? It's a whole different,
right.
It's a whole different thing now. But yeah, so we kind of try to go around different quadrants of the state, and we'll also look at what's happening in the state. So if there's a scenic byway thing, if there is a some sort of town event, if there's some sort of historical celebration that's out there, we'll try to say, well, we know this is going to happen in 2 years. Maybe we can work around that. Or if we want to do some investments from our foundation, our grants, then maybe that's something we write around. But we try to break it up. The thing is, we go through communities, and I would say 99% of them are like, can you come back next year?
Yeah.
So we're trying to spread the love, and try to figure out, well, we were here 5 years ago, let's move back here. Or now we know this new road or this new thing is there that we could actually try to get to and try to make it happen. So, it's really, we have sort of in our minds this cycle of how we want to work things, but, things change that. So fire changes that for us. We've had some fire issues over the past number of years, as a lot of people have.
You had to cancel 1 year, right? You had to cancel 1 year because of wildfires. It just hit the wrong time and the wrong spot, right?
Yeah, in 2017. So that was after 30 years. That was the first time we've had to move because of fire, and there weren't enough viable places in the state where we could actually knew we could kind of go into somebody else's backyard and do it. We've done enough that we can put some stuff together that we could execute an event, but this takes a year plus to put it together, so it's not something that's really simple. So we try to have a plan B, but sometimes a plan B is impacted just as a plan A is. So it's just it's funny looking for routes. So you can never put a price on safety. That's what I tell my wife. So my truck is built out for safety. It's built out for back roads, drive off a cliff, stuck out there a week. It's all about safety, but it's really all about that discovery piece. So, we can go back and look at all these weird forest roads that try to connect, and, we really just try to dig into it. If I can stay off a major road, that's my goal. It's like, we only have certain options to cut from A to B, but if we can go a different way, that's where we're going to go.
Good. Sarah, what's your position? What's your role with Cycle Oregon?
So I'm the vice president of the board.
Okay.
I joined the board, I guess, a year and a half ago now.
Okay.
I come from a long lineage of riding Cycle Oregon. I rode Cycle Oregon 2 back. I was just legal to drink at that point. So
what, like 1989?
Uh-huh. With my dad. So that was back in the era that Steve was talking about, when the communities first, I remember this long line to get breakfast in Gilchrist Crescent where they were trying to make waffles before we went up Crater Lake. It took forever. And, spaghetti and all, but great memories, and have ridden it on and off, I don't know, probably 15 or more times, and ridden every event except the Joyride as well. Took my kids on the weekend ride and things like that. So my role as vice chair is really to help, help with the chair, guide the board, and help Steve as we think about how we're pivoting to really evolve Cycle Oregon to, in the light of, we've got climate change and, fires and pandemics, and how do we evolve to be more inclusive? How do we reach new types of riders? Because one of the really interesting things we've noticed is our demographics have really the people that started riding with us when they were 30 or 40, they're still riding with us. They're just not 30 or 40 anymore.
Yeah.
And we kind of need to evolve that if we're going to remain relevant. And cycling is booming. So how do we, rethink who we are? And that's part of what Steve's and the team have been really working on this last year. So that's my role in an avid rider and board.
So, this is a low-hanging fruit question, but how have you guys done through COVID, and how is COVID going to change things for Cycle Oregon moving forward?
Well, the number one reason things happened is we didn't ride in 2020, and we're probably not going to ride. We don't know what's going to happen this year. Probably not going to ride this year, but we're.
Are you planning expecting the worst and hoping for the best, and you're still doing all of the planning process?
I'll let Steve take that, since he's really the operational. He handles all that stuff.
Yeah, well, yeah. So we are cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
That we can play this year on two wheels. The reality is we don't know. Nobody knows, right? You've got counties that just went back into extreme. So there's lots of variations, but I think that there's a good opportunity we'll be doing something in the fall. I'm not going to say we can or can't, but we are planning best we can to be able to execute that. As you can imagine, with the way we do something like Classic, so we're 7 days, so we're probably in 4 different counties, all of which have different rules, all of which have different permits, all of which are like maybe yes, maybe no. So there's a lot of other things at hand other than Cycle Oregon saying, yeah, we're going to go ride, right? So, but what it has done, with COVID and with the forest fires, as Sarah mentioned, sort of climate and all that, it's really, I would say, allowed us to look internally a little bit more about the organization and what the organization is doing. We've talked about it for a number of years of like, we do a little bit, we could do so much more. What can we do? It's like, oh, we don't have time. We're doing events. We just are swamped with events. Well, we didn't have events last year, right? We're not having a lot of events so far early this spring. So we've really been able to look at how the organization becomes a more comprehensive organization and how it can provide a bigger impact throughout the state when we're not doing events. So how can we supplement that so that, Cycling Oregon continue to support and help those others when we're still sitting at home on our trainers.
Gotcha.
So it's been really great. I think that there's definitely folks that are out doing stuff. I mean, you look at Mike Ridley. I know you guys know Mike, and Mike's he's the right number count to be able to do stuff, and he's also, from a racing standpoint, which a lot of you guys are primarily focused on the racing stuff. There's ways to make that work where you can do delayed starts, you can do different stops, you can do socially stuff. We're built around community and really the recreational celebration part of that. So, we don't have time starts, we don't have time stops. We have beer gardens, we have music at lunch, we have massage. I mean, we have all this other stuff. And so for us to do what we call a Cycle Oregon event is much different than what we could do based on what other folks are doing. Like Chad's able to do some stuff in 300 person range. We're just too big for that.
Yeah.
We just don't have that economy scale. So, but it has allowed us to do some other stuff, and some of this pivot that we're talking about and doing some other programming. We're working with a lot of our partners on how we can show up for the state. And we've got, a lot of things that are in the hoppers that we're excited to talk about here as we get into the year, as things kind of the ink starts to dry on a lot of these things. But, one of the things we just launched last week was our basically a Cycle Oregon membership group called COG, C-O-G, and pun intended, but it also stands for Community of Giving. And, it's a way for people to be a little bit more involved with the community of Cycle Oregon, to make a little bit more difference in what we can do and how we can give back. And, it's all part of joining that community social piece. And Sarah can probably put a little bit more to that too. She was kind of behind this, like, how do we do this? How do we get more people engaged? Like, how do we get the people that are now 80 that want to ride with us but can't ride anymore? Like, what's their engagement point? How can they continue to help Cycle Oregon and do cool things for the state? And so
E-bikes.
this membership is really what we tried to push. So.
Well, and I think what Steve's been talking about is, we're looking at it, we typically have been ride first. Well, and bicycling and economic development and rural engagement is so much more than just putting on an event. So how do we help get more people on bikes? How do we expand access to bikes, bike routes, education, whatever it is, and making sure we're exposing people to the amazing rural communities that we have. You think about the Dufur just seems to be our town of the day, but it's a great example of a town you would never get to unless you rode a bike. And the community of giving, I think, it's a new idea for us. It's rather than paying a member, a ride fee, become a member. We'll have some cool swag. We have a really cool jersey, so COGS on it. It's really super cool. But, you're going to get access to some events. You're going to have, we've got a great piece at the high level to help provide input into our grants program. So getting to help us kind of weed through grant opportunities and give some, feedback on that. It's just a really great way to still be part of Cycle Oregon. As Steve mentioned, when you're 80 and you can't do Cycle Oregon, but you still have amazing fondness for it, how else, this allows you to be part of that community. We just launched that. It's going to be open for a month for the founders members. And so we're really hoping to reach a broad audience and, really help that will keep going in the future as well. And lots of other really cool stuff coming down the road this year.
Excuse me. What are some things that you're doing to attract a younger demographic? Can you guys name anything in particular, or some things that you're thinking about? You guys have a TikTok account now?
We do. We have a TikTok account, and we give away mobile phone mounts for your handlebars, so you can just make sure you're watching the screen all the time.
There you go. Yeah.
Hashtag watch myself ride. You know, a lot of this, you know, the COVID and all you hear about is the bike boom, right? As everybody's pulled out their Huffy and their 1972 Schwinn Stingray, and they've gone out and you know, there's a lot of people in the event world that are like, man, cycling's gonna kill it. It's like, no, these people still want to just ride to the park, right? So how do you provide something for that? How do you give them that opportunity? And I think that's part of the events that we do, is we try to give folks that opportunity. So particularly our weekend events and our gravel events and our women's event, you know, we have short routes. Like your longest route could be 12 miles, right? But for that person, that's epic, right?
Yeah.
And to do that with help, and you know, I can remember the first joyride we did, and on the 12-mile course, and I was listening to a number of women at the lunch stop just calling their friends and partners and saying, I'm halfway there, this is awesome, you know, and 6 miles. And a lot of us take that for granted, you know, but that's the feeder, right? That's how we get people hooked into the sport, and what a great thing cycling can do for you. And so, you know, as we look forward to these other events, like our classic, a lot of people are like, I can't ride 7 days in a row for 500 miles and 35,000 feet of climbing. And, you know, so we've made some changes and some tweaks to that. So you have multiple layover days. We have some options. So, you know, over a week, you can ride 240 miles as opposed to, you know, 450. And so there's some options there to get people that, you know, want to try it, but don't want to commit to it. I mean, you all know races, it's commitment, right? To train. So if you're like, hey, we're going to go ride 500 miles in a week and you're going to climb 40,000 feet, that's a commitment. To train to that, and a lot of people don't have that time. Yeah, well, it is a little crazy, but
well, and Steve, I think one other thing that you've been doing is looking at how do we really foster community engagement when we're in town. You know, because that's something that the younger generation really loves, to feel that social, you know, connection and giving back and having a purpose to what they're doing. And so, how do we engage with the local, you know, either trail building or some community engagement type of thing? And I think that's a really cool adjustment to the model as well.
Do you guys try to connect with the competitive bike racing community in any way, shape, or form?
That's an interesting question. So we've talked a little bit about that. We definitely have those that come from the competitive nature that are on your podcast, that follow you. We have some dialed riders actually on our events. And it's interesting, but because, you know, the thing that we offer is just epic routes, right? Epic climbs, descents. And a lot of the times, you know, those competitive people. So the course opens on the classic at 6:30. So I'm usually out on the route at 5 in the dark, getting stuff laid out, you know, fellow event people can, you know, go along with my misery, but yet joy of working in the dark and all that. But, you know, these guys, I'll get to the first rest stop and it'll be 6:30, and that's 15 miles out. You know, we open the course at 6:30. You know, there's somebody there at 6:40. You know, there's a pack of people that are like, we're on, it's on, we're going, you know, and it's pretty funny to see those guys, because, you know, they're going to be in a camp at 9 o'clock. Like, we won't even have left the one town and they're already going to be in the next town. But that's the thing. They get out, they get on it, and they have these wide open roads. They know they've got support out there, and they just go have a great time. And, you know, we try to provide these opportunities for more challenging options for those that want it. You know, we talked about in the event that we didn't have in the Painted Hills, but on one of our days, doing a Strava timed event. And, you know, it's only, you got to leave by this time. It's only open for this. And if you want to go, you got to get in front of everybody else and go. So we were looking at just different ways to engage that audience.
Can folks connect with you guys on Strava? Do you have a Strava club on there?
Sarah would be able to answer that question, because I don't know that answer.
Because Cycle Oregon historically has not been about like Strava segments and all of that, and it's a one-time event. But that we do have engagement on, you know, Instagram, Facebook, and all of that. But we don't have a Strava club, as far as I'm aware of. Because I would be on part of it.
Yeah, that doesn't necessarily have to involve around, you know, racing every single segment. It's a good place to be able to connect with your people, because you send out a notification, and all of a sudden everybody's phone gets a little message alert like, "Hey, Cycle Oregon's got this going on," or "Check out that." So.
Yeah, well, and we've got some cool things that, that would be a great way to do training rides and things like
Sure.
that, too. Because we're
Yes.
starting to try and do some of those sorts of things
Yeah.
as well.
How do you guys put out all of your GPS?
We have them as ride with GPS files and these amazing maps. I mean, that's part of the experience is you get these beautiful glossy maps with, the gradients and everything
Sure.
that are, and then we also post the GPS files. But on the course, you never need a GPS
Because it's marked.
It is
well.
marked to a T with pink arrows, and there's no Dan Henry's. It's 1 arrow, 2 arrow, 3 arrow. It's a system that's worked for years, and it's so you.
Yeah, if you get
know where
lost
you
on
are.
a Cycle Oregon event, you're trying to get lost on a Cycle Oregon.
Yeah, pretty much.
Awesome. Gotcha. What other questions you got, Lance?
I know there's always like a big reveal moment when you actually release the course for the next year. Has this year's potential course been released yet?
Yeah, so we did a little save the date. So this year's course would be what we would have ridden in 2020. So for our classic, it was in the Painted Hills.
Okay.
It's a killer route. Lots of options. We got gravel, we got pavement, we got everything. But historically, the end of January, early February, every year we do a big, what we call our kickoff of announcement party.
Okay.
So we throw a big party, and then we announce every place we're going, for all 4 events and other things that we're doing, what's on our sort of agenda for the year. So I'm looking forward to next year's kickoff party because I think we're going to have a lot of cool things to talk about.
Because they're like big events. The kickoff party is like
It's happening.
It's legit thing, right?
It is.
Yeah, we have between like 600 and 1,200 people show up to it.
Wow.
It's amazing, and we have some vendors will be there, like some of our sponsors, and it's good times seeing all your friends that you haven't seen in 4 months that you rode with in last September. It's a big secret. I mean, Steve keeps it pretty tight to the vest as to where we're going, so it's always a complete. He'll give a hint or two, but it's a big secret.
I remember I modeled for the gravel event a couple years ago. John Kraft, who is one of your official photographers, he is a teammate of ours, and he asked me to come take some pictures to ride bikes on some of the gravel events. Guess what? They were around Doofer.
Yeah.
He's like, I want you to come do this. And I'm like, sure, I'm going to do anything. But I had to be sworn to secrecy where I was. I couldn't make the Strava ride. I couldn't make it public because he's like, hey, this is a big deal. This isn't going to come out till February or something. And I'm like, oh, wait, this sound, it intrigued me.
Yeah.
It intrigued me that
Well, that's cool.
it's kind of a cool thing. Yeah.
Yeah, John's great. John has been he's been our photo guy for a long time, and so we do a pre-ride every year. So we'll go and ride the future event. So, for example, we would ride this summer for next year.
You like
So there's
with
there's
just
a group
staff
of
and
us.
employees, 20 or 30 of you, or something like that.
There's about 10 of us, and it's a mix of some of the team, it's some volunteers, it's some friends of the family, kind of a Cycle Oregon love. But and John, John's Mr. Photographer, Mr. Social. I'm like, dude, you got to unplug everything you're connected to,
Right.
Yeah.
because nobody can be tracing where you
no
are right now.
GPS tracking this.
Yes.
Yeah.
No GPS tracking. Like, he's like, oh, this thing. I'm like, nope, come back and ride it in a year. Turn it off. Like, I don't want to. Yeah. He's a great A. You guys are lucky to have him on part of your team. He's great.
Good. Just real quick, we started to kind of touch a little bit about those early mornings for you. Tell me about a typical day for a cyclist. What would a cyclist expect to kind of go through during the course of a day, and what does it look like?
We could probably split this up,
Sure.
Steve.
Well, Sarah, you talk about that. Yeah, you're the cyclist. I know what happens, but
Yeah, you could fill in on the what else happens. But, your typical day is you get up and it's colder than the bejeebers usually because we're somewhere up in the mountains.
It's September.
In September, it can be 30 degrees. You wear you've got your hat and your down coat on. You go get a cup of coffee and breakfast. Usually bring some back to the tent.
Can I ask one other quick question?
Yeah.
When you wake up in the morning, you guys are camping every single night.
We are.
How does that shake down? How does that work?
So there's 2 approaches. Well, there's 3 technically. One is you bring all your own stuff,
Sure.
and you have to shove it in a bag that weighs 50 pounds ish, and you're responsible for schlepping it to a truck, and it will show up magically in a pile at that truck at the next spot. You put it up in a designated area. approach 2, which is my preferred way to do it, which is called tent and porter. They nicely put up your tent. They deliver your bag to said tent, and all you have to do is just make your tent make up your campsite within your tent. And then the third way is you can bring an RV, which is, of course, the far preferred way, even because you stay dry and warm and you don't have to pack up anything.
That was my next question, because with the advent of sprinter vans that have kind of taken over the
you gotta
outdoor.
have a driver, though.
Somebody has to drive and park it.
Yeah, but so those are kind of the 3 basic approaches. So you get up, your tents, you get out of your tent, you go wander down, get some coffee, some breakfast. You're going to go back, you're going to get dressed, and you got to get everything back into your duffel, including your tent if you're not doing tent and porter.
Yeah.
Get your bike organized. You hit the road somewhere. I'm one of the earlier people, but some tricks are like you send one spouse ahead and one packs up the tent and plays chase for a while. That helps equalize the riders. It's a clever approach. Then you get on the road, and everything basically you just need your clothing, your gear. You don't need to worry about your food really, because there's rest stops and the food is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, you gain weight on these rides. You don't lose weight ever. And so you have a rest stop, usually in a water stop if it's a long haul. Then you'll have lunch. And lunch will be a box lunch. Although I do remember the hot Mexican food burritos that we had down by the coast. That was really, really good that we did on that trip. That just to have like a hot buffet burritos. It was amazing. And then you'll have another rest stop and maybe another water stop. And you roll into town, and depending on your camping mode, you go back to your tent. If your tent and porter, your bag's there, you unpack, you get organized, you go hit the shower trucks, hot showers. There's always plenty of showers, so you don't have to wait long. Then you get food, go listen to some music, drink a beer, maybe have a pizza if it's a while before dinner, listen to music all night, and then dance if you want, and go to bed.
What's the average distance of each ride? I'm sure it varies a little bit.
It varies, but 50 to 100 miles is probably about right for the average day.
So we're about 65 miles a day. If you think about, that's about what our average typically is. But you'll have some 80s and you'll have some 50s, but
and
it ranges right around there.
Yeah, and within that you could have 1,000 feet of climbing, or you could have 6. The really hard days are the ones that are like 7,000 feet of climbing and 80 or 90 miles.
Yeah,
those can be really. We had a really long haul in 2019 to get to Diamond Lake. That was like a 95-mile day or something like that.
And again, year over year, you average how many riders? Was it 2,000 you said?
2,000.
Yeah,
give or take. And logistically for the rider, is it pretty easy to be able to use the restrooms, to get in a shower, to get food? I mean, you guys really provide
everything
above and beyond on everything, and you have access to all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Steve, you feel free to join in. From my perspective, occasionally you'll have to wait for a shower. Like you stand in line for a couple of minutes.
Sure.
The women seem to be getting off better these days than the men. It seems like I rarely have to wait for a shower anymore. But there's chairs there, and there's like 12 showers in a truck, and you each have your private shower. It's great. Lunch or dinner, there's a little bit of a line, but there's like 6 serving lines, so you just boom, boom, boom. You really don't, and there's porta potties up. The Blue Room is just magic how they pull that off. It's amazing watching those guys work. I mean, you've never seen better porta potty hygiene than you've seen on Cycle Oregon.
No, it's cool, and everything moves. And the cool thing is that you're standing in line, but you start to talk to somebody, and you're like, "Oh, you're from Brazil." Like, that's so cool. And everybody is. I remember my first Cycle Oregon that I went on. It was in 2001, and I was astonished at, it had over 2,000 people, and tents are open, bikes are everywhere. Like literally, you walk by a tent and there's a wallet laying there and whatever, and everybody's just there to have fun, and they want to do stuff together. And they're on vacation, exactly. And it's like, hey, I'll buy you a beer. Where are you from? Cool, And it's just this giant community thing where there aren't any egos that are prevalent. I mean, like, come on, there's egos,
that's
right?
Because Jake and I haven't been.
But everybody's well, exactly. So that's a double fee charge. We'll talk to you about the ego fee that's involved in that. But I mean, it's really cool. And even if you're standing in line for something, I mean, people are getting along and they're friendly, and everybody's just there to have fun. It's just great.
Okay, my brain is breaking just a little bit thinking about this because I can't imagine going on a week-long cycling trip without my bike computer, my cell phone, or my Apple Watch and being able to take pictures and charge all three of those things every night. How do 2,000 people charge their devices in a field somewhere?
Yeah.
How do you do with that?
You plug into a current bush.
Just plug into a current bush.
The magic of the community cycling center.
The magic of the current bush. Yeah, so interesting, so 20 years ago, right?
Yeah, not
we
a
had a
thing.
phone tree, so we would actually set up like a mobile phone tree, and the guys would tap into a line, and you could stand in line on a payphone, right, to call.
That.
And now everybody's got like 12 things. And I remember when Facebook came out, I was like, we are not doing social media. I mean, it's like we are going out there to unplug, not to plug in all the time. And clearly I lost that battle, but
Yeah.
so now we have the community will provide a charging service, so the kids from the high school will charge your devices. You can go to the gym and you can pay them $1 or whatever. Community Cycling Center out of Portland travels with us, and they do bike detailing, but they also have a charging service. So that will help fund some of the stuff that Community Cycling Center does. So they actually have a solar trailer that they pull with them now that will help charge batteries. So they have all the stuff, and you just check up and hang your thing,
Steve,
or you can
you're
do a power block.
thing. You're underselling this thing. So imagine a giant, like booth, and they have hundreds of little cubbies in this thing with power strips, and you check your device in, and they've got hundreds charging at once. It's all solar.
Okay.
And basically,
this is a whole thing.
It's a
Everybody's
thing.
charging their devices.
It's a complete thing.
So it's a thing every evening. Okay.
Oh yeah, and the minute you get
My
in,
brain is less broken.
yeah, and like you can get an unlimited charge, and so like we used to do this, like, okay, you drop off your Garmin and then go shower and get a beer, and then we're gonna swap them.
The Garmin put my phone in.
And then we'll do the phone, and then if yours is okay, we'll do the next one. It was ridiculous.
Well, I would be taking like pictures all day and
you
then
want to.
posting them that night, and it's sharing with everybody.
I will tell
Look
you,
at this
there are
cool
times
thing.
there is no cell service. We do end up in black holes of connectivity,
That's
and
also
it's
good.
wonderful.
Yeah.
That's also
It's
good.
It's absolutely wonderful.
But I still want my phone to take some pictures.
Exactly. Well, Steve has got that figured out, and it supports Community Cycling Center, which equally is wonderful about getting kids on bikes.
I love it.
And they do this bike detailing service. That's the other really cool thing, because like there's times you will ride through, like a cattle drive. Even we did that one time, but like so they do a complete bike detail overnight. So you drop your bike off, and you pay them a bit of money, and you come back with this perfectly shiny bike that's just completely detailed end to end.
Wow.
It's a great thing. It's
Nice.
a great thing.
That's pretty cool.
It is.
Well, particularly for people like Sarah that sleep with her bike, it's important to have a clean bike. when you sleep with it.
She's got it padlocked to the tent stake.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, well, yeah.
It has its own sleeping bag. Are you kidding
Exactly,
me?
right. Yeah. I just pet it every night before bed. That's it.
Yeah.
Tell us about your virtual challenge.
Yeah. So, as you all know, when the events kind of shut down, everybody went like, well, let's go virtual. Let's do it. And Cycle Oregon was very intentional about not doing something like that. We didn't want to try to recreate an event that really wasn't what we're at the heart of. And so we kind of waited to see what happened. And, we saw how that sort of started to take a place, but it's really not really a replacement for event, but more of a community building thing. And so we are working with Ride with GPS. You guys are all familiar with those guys, I'm sure. Kevin and the crew are great.
Yep.
And
Yes.
and they are launching a new challenge platform. And so we are one of the first handful of folks internationally that's going to be doing a challenge. So we are going to be launching a challenge next month. So we did a little baiting to our ridership to kind of be ready. We didn't give a lot of details about it, but it's going to be something that we're going to do for a while, and it'll be something that we can help complement our riders, so those that can't join us can actually join us in the future. So we're pretty stoked about it.
That's awesome.
But again, yeah, it was not like, oh, you're going to ride our route and here's your thing. It's like, no, we didn't want to do that. We wanted to wait and see how it fits with Cycle Oregon, how it feels right for us. We've always been very intentional on what we do. And not that others aren't, but that's just something that we've always been. So we were like, everything needs to make sense. The membership needs to make sense. The other programs that we're doing has to make sense. They have to be on brand, and they have to be long-term solutions. We're not about putting Band-Aids on this. I'm about creating surgery and fixing this. And COVID has really shown that there's some things, in the industry that need to be fixed. I mean, you all know that, road cycling has been on the decline for years, right? Races are challenging. Yeah. It's like, what is it? It's when we come out of the pandemic, that didn't go away, right? So it's still out there. And so those that are thinking about, well, we get through this, it's going to be great, we're back to normal. It's like, normal wasn't great before. No. Yeah. So how do we continue to build it? And so that's what we're looking at. It's like, how do we be intentional? How do we take on programs and events that are really going to have the long game in mind? And we're thinking this virtual challenge will be part of that.
That's a good step in that direction.
You know what? I'd like to hear like a very cool story about something that happened during one of the events, or a group that gets together, or something that you might be inspiring that happened during that. I know I have a bunch of guys I used to ride with on Saturdays. We call ourselves the Mari Group because it used to meet at a bakery called Mari's, which no longer exists, but it's still called the Mari Group. Mm-hmm. And there's a group of 10 or 12 of them that have done Cycle Oregon like 15 times. They call themselves Team Martini. You probably know. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yep. Because every night they get together with their tents and they all have martinis in their little thing. And they had jerseys made that same Team Martini, and they all wear them during the ride and whatnot. And I thought it was a group of like 10 or 15 people that every year got together at Cycle Oregon to go do this ride, which it made them all very good friends and very tight, and it was a great bonding experience for them. But I don't know, do you have like cool stories about inspirational things or cool things that happened during one of the events in the last 30 years?
Only a couple.
Let me see. Sarah, do you want to start?
Let me tell you about something I found really inspiring. You're going to help me, though, with the name of the organization, because I can't, it's escaping me. I'm having a senior moment. But last time we rode in 2019, on the Crater Lake Day, I was it was a glorious day on Crater Lake, like one of the best. But I got, going up the last big hill back up to the rim, I was riding with the folks in the hand cycles.
Oregon Adaptive Sports.
The Oregon Adaptive Sports group that was on sort of beta testing. Could they support people doing Cycle Oregon? And there were two of their riders, and they had a companion rider with them, and they had done a big chunk of the rim, and they were working their way up from Rim Village up to the top, and it was so inspiring. They were doing so well, and it was just so great to see it opened up to, again, somebody different than our classic male, male in their 50s on a road bike. Here they were doing that. And so that, to me, that was the most recent, like, awe-inspiring thing.
The Crater Lake Rim Ride is not easy. It's like 35 miles, but like 4,000 feet of climbing.
And not a flat thing.
There's
on
nothing
it.
flat going around that rim.
No, and we had, it was a perfect, kind of like yesterday was a perfect day in Dufur. This was like the perfect day. But, I mean, there's a lot of other, like wonderful moments of bagpipers on hillsides as we're going by, and the grilled cheese sandwiches in the rain at the summit going into going into Rainbow, and just these wonderful moments that they just make you smile, and they make riding just this magical thing. So, but those are some of mine.
Yeah, we like to have the unexpected. The unexpected experiences is really what, which is cool. And I think that's stuff that we provide, but it's also those things that happen when you're there. And the grilled cheese is great. Franz has been a sponsor for years, and they have a grilled cheese truck, and we hit it up on the woods at a rest stop, and people showed up, and we made hot grilled cheese sandwiches for them.
Wait, so you had this food truck parked out in the middle of nowhere,
making hot grilled cheese
sandwiches for people just at a rest stop. Wasn't lunch stop. Nope, it was like, here's a little pick me up.
Oh yeah, I've got a couple more then that come to mind. So we were in somewhere in Central Oregon, and this woman who was an organic peach farmer pulled up in her truck full of perfectly juicy peaches and was just handing them out as you went by.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it was just like, oh my goodness. And then going up Rattlesnake Grade on a 95-degree day on our tandem, the water truck, it was so hot. The water truck was coming along and spraying people as we were going up the hill. So you got just cold
dust.
water all over you. It was awesome. Yeah, and going to the rodeo, because we've been to the Pendleton Roundup multiple times and have this whole section of spandex. At the rodeo.
At the
You fit
rodeo.
right
At the
in.
rodeo, yeah. So we've had some just amazing, and the bike rodeo that we used to have.
What is that? I
So-
wanted to ask you about what is the bike rodeo?
Steve, do you want to take
The
that one?
bike rodeo.
Want me to take it? Which
Yeah.
one?
So Bike Gallery, as I mentioned, has been coming from the get-go, and so they started, gosh, I don't know how many years ago. Seems like forever, 20 years ago maybe, this bike rodeo. And so one night on the event, all of the bike mechanics, to shut down the mechanic stands, and they all come out to the main stage, and we have a bike rodeo. And so they are in competition with each other. So there are track stands, there are jousting, there
Blue room
are
poles.
limboing. Anything they can do to knock their fellow people off the bikes is all about the challenge. We have wheelie challenges out into the crowd. It's great, but it's really a night for those guys to blow off some steam. They are working their butts off all week, and everybody gives it appreciation. But it's we'll have the blue room tow where they hook up the bikes to the blue rooms and start dragging these portable potties across the stage.
And Jay Graves was the most competitive of all of them when he
Absolutely.
was still on the ride. He
Absolutely.
would just make it crazy. But yeah, so I mean
The
that's
Dominator.
yes, I think that you're getting a sense of Cycle Oregon. It's a bike ride, but there's always these magical moments that you just sit there and talk about, or this vista, or the cheerleaders cheering you as you come into town.
Oh,
Like
cool.
they're all out there, in this little tiny town, and there's all the cheerleaders there. There's some things like that just make it much more than just a bike ride from point A to point B.
It's a week-long party in spandex.
It is, and you're you pull up to drop off your bags at the first evening before we take off, and it's just like you're back home, and it's like the circus, and you've gone this exotic place, and it's like so brilliant and just really magical. So.
I can't think of a better way to see Oregon. And Oregon is
yeah.
an absolutely stunningly beautiful state.
Yes.
So I think I need to go do this now. You guys are talking me into this.
You need to bring the fam.
Yeah, for sure. How young will you guys allow a rider to come out there and join you?
Well, we've had babies.
Yep.
on it.
Yeah, we don't have age limits. I mean, we've had lots of tag-alongs. We've had a family that has had their two kids on a quad, and they have grown up, and now the kids are on their own bikes, and now they're beating the parents. Wow. And we've had people, like I said, babies just being towed in a Burley trailer. So it's really, a lot of it's support-wise. We have to figure out from a support standpoint. You have kids and parents need to stay together, that kind of thing. But we don't have any age limits.
There's always some, 10-year-old-ish, who've been taken out of school for the week who ride and
Yeah.
just, either on a tandem or on their own bikes. And it's great. Everyone, I mean, they're usually the most popular of the group. Everybody wants to talk to the kids. They're well looked after and they seem to have a good time. And usually it helps to have, the ability to give them an off day and things like that. But really it's up to the family and the kids. And, the weekend, which is another ride we do, I did it once with a triple with my daughter and my niece on it, going up to Astoria Column. That was like the hardest climb I've ever done, hucking these two 5-year-olds. So it's very accessible for the shorter rides especially.
Nice. Now, I've heard you mention people from Alaska. I've heard Brazil. Where else from around the world? I guess where haven't people been from? But seriously, though, where do people come from all over the world, and how are they finding out about you?
Well, I don't know about how they find out, but I mean, Europe is a big. There's typically a group from Germany. Japan is very, very popular. We have Canada as well. I could come up with a list. I just didn't look at it before I came over. But Steve, you probably know more about how do they hear about us? Word of mouth?
Yeah, a lot of it. Yeah, a lot of it's word of mouth. A lot of it, Travel Oregon is a sponsor partner of ours, and they do some international stuff. So a lot of them have heard that. But we've had people that have come over that have written about us over there overseas, and so that has sort of developed a little kind of following from Europeans, primarily. But it's that word of mouth that generally just provides all of our kind of go to it. And, we have, from a retention rate, we probably have 60% of the people are return riders every year.
Yep.
So, we're getting about 40% that are new that come in. But a lot of people just hold on to it. So it's great.
Yeah, we have groups that have been, we have people who've done every single ride still.
Oh
Wow.
my God.
There's a handful of them. There's like, but what is it, under 10? But there's still a handful that have done every single one.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
That's definitely amazing. What can we do to help you guys out?
Well, I think part of it is just being on the show, so thank you. But I think the community of giving is something we'd really like to encourage people to check out. We'd love to have you be part of our community because we really want to continue to really expand and be relevant to the cycling community and really foster a year-round community, not just when we're on the rides. And then when we start to ride, come ride with us. It's if you've no matter if you're a racer or just beginning, come ride with us because we'll make it an amazing experience for you.
Okay, so Community of Giving or COG.
The
where
COG.
Where can people go to find out more about that?
Cycle Oregon website. Steve, if you want to additional details?
Yep,
on that?
cycleoregon.com. So they're Community of Giving, and so if you go right to our homepage, there's a link straight to the Community Giving page, and they can look at all the other stuff, our impact. You can look at grant stories that we've done, and investments that we've made throughout the state. So there's a whole slew of information there. So yeah, just check us out. If you think a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I've heard about Cycle Oregon. It's that 53-year-old white guy recreational ride. It's whatever. That's not my jam. It's not that, right? Yeah. It's not your grandpa's ride anymore. So it's very different than maybe what some people think of it. So I would just say, give us a look, check it out, see what's out there, and you won't be disappointed.
Well, and let me just put one more plug on the COG. This year is really, we're calling the Founders Club. It's going to have special recognition to really kickstart this. It's going to be an ongoing membership thing, but this is the big, help us make that transition to a new Cycle Oregon, be part of it. So we'd love to have you join us.
So how does that work financially? Is there are there different tiers? Or
There's 3 tiers. We have a $50 tier that is kind of the basic membership. Then there's a $250 tier, which is called, Steve, what's the name of it? Paceline. And you get that amazing jersey I talked about, as well as some other additional perks. And then we've got the top level, which is $1,000, which is breakaway. And you get an amazing shower pass duffel bag, as well as the jersey, and the ability to have some input on the what we do with our grants, because Steve he's mentioned the foundation a couple of times.
The jersey's cool.
The jersey's very
cool. The jersey's cool.
Very cool. Yep.
But Steve's mentioned the foundation a couple times, and I think it's worth double tapping on that and just making sure that we talk about what we do with the foundation as well, and the grants we give out. So Steve, do you want to just add a couple sentences on that?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So we started a foundation or a fund, the Cycle Oregon Fund, at the Oregon Community Foundation in 1996. And we were talking about earlier of we made this money, let's pass the hat and give it back. So we made a very conscious effort to figure out how we could do more through a fund. And so we have been investing proceeds from the rides since 1996 into that fund. We have given about $2.5 million in grants out from that fund since then, and we right now have a little over $2.5 million in the fund. So that fund is separate of Cycle Oregon, but all of the money that we generate, any proceeds, will go to that fund, and then we can do these grants. And so these are primarily for community grants. So super easy for small communities to apply for a grant. It could be for a water heater. It could be build a community center. I mean, it's a varying degree of what these grants are out there. But that's really about how we continue to make that impact, is have this fund where people can give to do simple grant applications, and we can give money back every year. So we give about $150,000 to $200,000 in grants a year from that fund, in addition to all that other stuff we talked about earlier. So it's really feeding that work and feeding that fund, and how that fund can do more work in the future.
That's how we make a continual impact in those communities beyond just bringing a lot of cool riders through.
Yeah.
I love that. That's fantastic.
You guys have to come ride with us. Bring the dialed team.
Yes.
In full disclosure, I was signed up to come one year and paid for the tent and porter service because I wanted it to be I wanted it to be
100%,
lush.
100%.
But I ended up not being able to make it. So
he went and raced instead.
I did. I stayed home, and there were cyclocross. It's during the cyclocross season. I ended up I'm not going to make any excuses.
You just didn't show. Got it.
He just
Didn't
made a nice
show. I sold my tent
contribution.
and porter service
Yeah.
to somebody else.
But you made a nice donation to the Cycle Oregon
I
Fund,
did
yeah.
make a donation to the Cycle Oregon.
I'm sure a lot of people. I don't even know if I know right off the top of my head. What does it cost to go do the classic, or I guess all the different events? What does
Yeah.
something like that cost?
Steve, that's your world.
Sure. Yeah, that's my world. Well, pre-COVID, I will put a disclaimer on that, pre-COVID, because there's a lot more requirements now. But for the week-long event, it's $1,000 basically, and that has all your food, has all your gear hauling, has all your stuff. It does not pay for your beer, and it does not pay for your massage, but it pays for pretty much everything else. And then, like our women's event's $100. Our weekend event is between $200 and $300. So between that and the gravel event, again, everything's covered. So and that, we've got medical on site that travels with us. We got ambulances, we got police, we got all kinds of stuff.
And the bike support
Yeah.
they provide.
Yeah.
Basically, you pay for parts, but no labor.
Oh, geez.
Wow.
Yeah. So like my derailler's
Right.
squeaking. They fix it.
They fix it.
My bike fell over and is destroyed. They fix it. I blew out my rim. They fix it. It's just the parts. So
So the $1,000 for the week long does not sound like
Nope, that's-
enough.
that's a great deal.
Honestly, that's
It's
a
a
great
great
deal.
deal.
Now, how much more is it for the tent porter though?
what is it like?
$450.
$450.
So-
and it's so worth it.
$1,450 for.
Basically
All I have to do is
glamping.
show up and have a good time and ride my bike.
Correct.
For a week.
Yes.
Yep.
That's it.
Why have I not done this already?
I don't know.
I mean, that is a lot of money. But when you think about the experience, you think about what you're getting out of that. The return, food's included.
And it's 3 squares, and plus, you will gain weight, honestly, and you get all your snacks. So everything in the rest stops.
Hot showers. You don't have to lift a
Hot sh-
finger.
You basically all you have to do is put your clothes on and get on your bike.
Could
and
I
then eat?
Could I chill all morning and then leave it like 10
Yes.
and then just blitz the whole
Yes.
course and not have to leave at 6 in the
You
morning?
could leave at noon and blitz the whole
Ooh.
course, but no,
So
I think they like everyone out of town by about 10, 9:30. Steve has to
Yeah.
get because you
Yeah.
got to remember they got to pick up.
Right,
and
they
move.
got to move. Yeah.
And you'll see sometimes
Yeah.
it's actually really fun. You'll see the shower trucks, like it's rare. They don't typically route on the route. I mean, only if there's no choice, but it's kind of fun. Like there goes the shower truck, there goes the baggage truck.
There's Lance drafting the shower truck.
Exactly. But we also have SAG support. I think that's one other really important thing.
You
We
have trouble, you fall apart one day, I can get in a van.
Absolutely, and the SAG drivers are amazing. They all have music playing. They all have personalities. I mean, you get to know their personalities. There's bubble machines. There's you name it, but they will have all the necessities. They'll have sunscreen. They'll have food and water. They have basically anything to kind of get you past an emergency. But if you need to stop, they don't care. They'll pick you up.
Wow.
And so, if you can't make it up the hill, it's okay. If you can't make it in that day, it's okay. And they're the greatest people. It's fabulous. And
sounds fun.
Yeah, there's nothing better than hearing, they all have their unique musical sound, and you can hear them wafting up the valley. And we also have usually have some, off-duty patrolmen as well that
Sure.
are out there on motorcycles, kind of helping deal with issues as well.
Yeah. This is kind of a little bit off in the weeds a little bit, but do you guys have a curfew or a lights out time for everybody so that you can get some shut eye, or is it everybody's pretty respectful and they're not out?
Most people are exhausted.
Yeah.
I would think that earplugs
Yeah.
would be your friend.
They
Probably,
are.
yeah.
And Steve may know of, there may be some malarkey that happens, but pretty much I've never had. I mean, the worst thing is the generators coming on at 4 a.m. if you're too close to the generators.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
But I mean, we
Yeah, it
support
shuts down
CPAPs.
pretty early.
It's
We
great.
we do announcements. Yeah, we do announcements at like 7:30 every night from the main stage. So I'll go up and talk and try to get off as soon as possible. But we have the community come and talk about like what their sense of place is and stuff. And then we have live music, and a lot of people will hang out the first couple songs, and then you can kind of just see everybody just starts to do this. They're 3 beers in,
Yeah.
And so, there's I'd say there's probably 100 people that are still going till 9 o'clock, but we pretty much shut it down by 10. Like the music stops about 9, the beer garden shuts down at 10, because those beer garden, actually, once those guys shut down, they pack up and they leave, and they just go to the next site that night, and then they sleep in their cars. And so the next morning they start setting up with some of our advanced teams. So
Wow.
they shut down and leave, and the stage leaves, and it's this big leapfrog thing that we do. And so, yeah,
There's not much to do in
but people
the
are pretty
field.
worn out.
Yeah, there's not much to do in a field in Lakeview at midnight. There's just not.
Right.
You can only throw so much cornhole. After you throw too much cornhole, then you're done.
How many acres do these fields have to be in order to accommodate everybody and everything?
Steve, how
We
big?
need about 15 acres
Oh my gosh.
to set up our site.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a lot, and that's that's the kind of thing, like, we can't just go anywhere. If you go on, like Chad's gravel rides, we could 300 people. Like, I have 300 staff. I can't just put 300 people. I can't put 2,500 people anywhere. So, when you start talking about COVID and people are saying, "Oh, well, just get another dining tent," I'm like, I need 10 acres of dining tents to spread people out. It just it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But so we need a big footprint, because you think we've got 5 or 6 shower trucks, we've got 4 or 5 mobile kitchens. We've got the main stage. We've got everybody's gear. We got 4 or 5 baggage
The
trucks.
yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Tent. I mean, it's just a lot.
Yeah, one of the best stories of main stage stories is Enterprise, Oregon. What we do there, we close down Main Street and they stick the main stage in the center of town.
Yes.
Wow.
It's amazing,
Yes,
and the whole
that's cool.
community comes out. I remember the last time we were there, it seemed like half the town was dancing, because we
Yep.
had a karaoke band on stage who are very, very good, and but it's so cool because they like literally shut down the town for us.
That's awesome. Have you guys ever had any big names get on the stage, or is it generally going to be?
Well, Quarter Flash and they were with us for a long time, which is a long-standing old Portland
Wow.
group. They came out and both performed as the trail band and Quarter Flash and a standalone, but I can't think of anyone else that's big.
Yeah,
big
we
name.
had Pink Martini when Pink Martini first started. Thomas Lauderdale and his group were out there earlier, but we try
they're
to.
big Portland
They're big,
people.
yeah.
Yeah, they're a big Portland band. Yeah, and but like I mentioned before, we try to utilize the locals. There's a lot of great talent out in this
Oh,
state,
yeah.
and we'd rather get some really as opposed to trying to spend $50,000 to bring in somebody to play some music. It's like we can put that money back in the community and hire some
100
local
yeah.
people,
Yes,
and there's
yeah.
some great bands that are out there. But we do bring we go from all over. Sarah mentioned karaoke. We bring this live karaoke band with us every once in a while, and they come out of Portland, and it gets very raucous. People that should not be singing karaoke after 3 beers are up there singing, and it's a great time though. We have a really good time.
It is.
Trying to we've played with it. Do we make it a music festival too? And that just doesn't quite feel true to our core right now.
Sure. My last question: volunteers. Are you guys in dire need of more volunteers? You have volunteers coming out of your guilds. What's the story there? And if somebody did want to volunteer to help out, how would they go about doing that?
Steve, I'll let you take that.
Yeah, sure. So yes, we do. We always need volunteers. As Sarah mentioned earlier, we have people come back every year, but we always have a handful of spots to fill every year. Right now without events, we have all our volunteers are like, well, what can we do to help? So right now we don't need anything, but certainly when we start doing events, there's a volunteer page on our website, cycleoregon.com, and they can inquire about that. We open up for volunteers usually somewhere around April of every year, and they can do. There's all kinds of stuff on all 4 of the events. Plus, there's stuff they can do to help the crew, load trucks and get stuff ready and beforehand. So always could use volunteer help, and it's great.
It's
Volunteers.
really
We have
fun.
a lot of volunteers that were riders that start volunteering, and they'll never go back to riding because they have way too much fun volunteering.
It is
Yeah.
way fun. It is super fun.
If you volunteer, do you have any opportunity to ride during the event?
Steve? Probably
Yeah,
depends on the
sometimes,
role.
but not. Yeah, it depends on the role, but a lot of the times it's just based on us moving. It's really
Sure.
hard for
Too
somebody to
many
get on their
moving
bike,
parts.
and
Yeah.
yeah.
I would just think that it would be nice to be able to do it. Not necessarily do the rides during the day,
Yeah.
but just be able to get on your bike and go for a ride in the area that you're
Yeah.
at.
Well, I mean, if you had some downtime, there's nothing prohibiting you from riding
Yeah.
for sure. But there's some people like the rest stop coordinators, they're going from 4 a.m. until dusk. And so
They're done,
they
yeah.
have no time. But there's other roles that you would definitely have time to do
Awesome.
that. So it's very fun.
Cool. Lance, do you have any more questions?
No, I'm set. I bailed on my registration.
Next time.
You're welcome for my registration fee, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate
You're
that. Cancel more often if you want.
Steven, Sarah, is there anything else that you guys would like to add that we haven't covered yet today?
No, I think this has been great.
Yeah, no, it's been great, and I appreciate again the opportunity to kind of chat with you guys for the day and kind of give your listeners a little bit more information about what Cycle Orion's all about. And
Sure.
I think that it's a great it's a great opportunity to ride and be competitive without having to worry about getting on the podium, and just have a bunch of fun with a bunch of your friends. So you guys should join us.
We get our team out there, but then we also put out a challenge to the other teams, and we can just go call it a 1 week stage race.
Yeah, that's
Drop
right.
the hammer.
Why
just go.
not? We'd just send you guys out we'd set you an early start time or a very late start time, and
We leave at noon.
and you sweep the course for us.
There you go. Yeah.
course.
That could be a lot of fun, though. Could
And
you
we'll-
imagine going out there with a whole pile of dialed riders and
That would be
getting a
fun.
few other teams out there as well? That would be a blast.
That would be fun.
You guys could have your own camp area.
Yeah.
The candlelighters do that. They have a special camping area that they are there all together, and they do that, and they all ride. They have their jerseys with who they're riding for and things like that.
That's cool.
Yeah, so you guys could do something similar.
The wheels are turning.
Well, you know how to get in touch with us.
Awesome. On that note, let's jump into one last thing before we wrap this up. Lance, I'm going to start with you.
Guess what?
Chicken butt.
I'm racing this weekend.
You don't say.
I am racing this weekend. There is a mountain bike race in Central Oregon. It's called Bone Crusher. It's part of the XC series, and it's only going to be like an hour-long race, so none of these freaking 10-mile climbs.
Nice.
That's all.
That ought to be fun. Sarah, one last thing.
I am not racing this weekend, but I do think I'm going to try and do one of the OMTM Ride of the Months. I've done Swale Canyon many, many times, but I've never done the climb up from the river, up over the top to Swale Canyon. So I'm thinking of doing that. Not on Dallas Mountain Road, but on the
other side.
A little farther east than that. So we'll see what the wind does.
This
see
is
how
out
I
in
feel.
the Columbia River Gorge
Yeah, just
area
across from Dufur.
on the Washington side.
Yeah, and Swale Canyon this time of year. I've only done it in the fall, so it's beautiful then. But I'm thinking it's gonna be gorgeous this time of year.
We've probably touched on this a touch in the past, but everybody at the table knows what OMTM is. Do you want to elaborate on OMTM, what that is exactly?
OMTM stands for Our Mother the Mountain. It's, I guess, a loose affiliation of crazy gravel riders that
Yep.
have a couple of ringleaders here in the Portland area. They are masters at mapping the unknown roads, trails, squirrel paths,
Yep.
and goat trails of Oregon and Washington. And right now what they're doing is they typically would do a monthly ride, sort of all comers, not formal. It's, come as you are, you get yourself in, get yourself out. But they're doing basically throwing routes out. They've got 2 for this month. One goes from Portland all the way out past the hinterlands of Silver Falls and back. It's a 200K that looks, which looks really cool because it literally goes by my childhood home. So I'm going to have to do at least a good chunk of it, but that can be done any time of year. And the other one is going out in Swale Canyon, and that is, if you've never ridden Swale Canyon, you have to ride Swale Canyon. It is so beautiful.
Yes, if you're from the
Rugged,
Pacific Northwest, is it omtm.com or is it
.cc?
.cc? Okay, that's their website, and then they also have a Strava group on there. Go
They
check
do.
both of them
and
out.
a Google Groups that's actually even better. If you join their community,
not
they have
know
a
that.
Google listserv, which is where if you ever want to know is X road rideable, ping that, and Ron and Ryan will be on it in a second, as well as everybody else.
Yeah.
So that's like invaluable. Plus their route library. They have a huge route library on Ride with GPS that they've organized by sector of the area, and very, very well done.
Yeah, that's a great thing. So,
It is.
Love it.
My favorite, one of my favorite resources.
great resource for sure. Steve, one last thing.
Weekend, I am packing the bikes, mountain bikes, gravel bikes, and my wife and I are heading south for 2 weeks. Destination unknown, but we think we're going to end up in Arizona at some point, but try to ride Utah and ride Arizona a little bit. And a much needed trip, but I do everything about planning, right? So logistics, I decided no logistics for 2 weeks, and we're just going to roll and see what happens. So we're stoked to get out of town.
Nice.
Right on.
I like that.
Have a good time.
Cool. My one last thing. Bike thieves suck.
Oh.
Somebody broke into the lab last night
We got
and
broken
stole
into.
3 bicycles from us.
Oh no.
Yep. That's not how I wanted to start my day.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
We've been trying to put on a good
Not
face
good.
today. But we're
Yeah.
a little
I've just been a little, I mean, I guess considering what was taken, I'm pretty low key right now. I'm not too worked up, right? But yeah, somebody decided to pry open a door and came in here and helped themselves to 3 bikes before the alarm went off and skedaddled out of here. And they took some other Garmin stuff, but that sucks. So
Yeah.
if you see a bright green BMC SLR01
There's an orange one.
Team Machine, and then the same thing in orange, and the same thing in kind of a bright red.
Yep.
They stick out like a sore thumb. You do not see these bikes all the time by any means at all. Anyway,
Sorry.
I digress.
Not good.
Moving forward, looking forward to another great week. Hopefully, we'll rebound from that. Trying to get people to stop calling here. And yeah, I really appreciate your guys' time. This was fun. It's fun to break away and do stuff that's not always race oriented, and to learn about other things and options that we have out there as cyclists is phenomenal. I am gonna have to do one of these. I'm hoping that it goes off for you guys this year. I don't know if I can do it this year, but I will. You'll see me out there.
Wonderful.
Maybe I can volunteer. Who knows?
Or join us on the gravel ride or something. One
There
of
you
those.
go.
Or,
The gravel ride. When is that?
well, it was supposed to be in May of last year.
Uh-huh.
We've done them in October. I think it's TBD as to what
Yeah.
the next gravel ride will be.
Where do you guys typically disseminate all of your information? Is it social media and email blasts
And our website.
and your website?
And the kickoff party. But yes, social media will have it all as well, and
Perfect.
our website.
I'll make sure to connect all of those things and pass the word.
Please.
Gonna get our team out there. So,
Great.
all right.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you again for your time. Thank you for everybody who is was watching and listening. And we will see you guys next week. Till then, bye for now.